So I've got two different markets, two different times in market cycles to go through. This is out of, I can't remember which one you got up here first, David.
That's Austin.
So this is Austin, Texas in about 2013. It's way hotter now than it was then. But you remember I said you could look at the buy side and the sell side and get a really quick read on how hot it is. So you heard me talk about pendings in the last 30 days. So it starts at 100,000, it goes all the way above 800,000 or a million. And I was talking about how high the ratios were when we pulled the numbers like 75 days ago for Manatee, Sarasota. It was no different in Miami-Dade. So in 2013, if you look at these pending ratios, at the low price points, it's about 112%. That means there's more pendings than even actives. You go to the higher price points, oh, there you go. You can see the numbers start to drop off. So even though in 2013 in Austin, things were selling fairly quickly, it wasn't before it really took off, you can judge relative strength. Like if you look at it, right, it's really hot there. At about the median price in Manatee, Sarasota County, it was 370%. Miami-Dade, David, do you remember what it was? It was at least in the 300s, around the median price. That's how far out of whack demand is for listings. So when people talk to you about, oh, it's going sideways, is it going to be a bubble? You got a long way to go. And I'll show you what a long way it looks like to go in a minute. I'm going to show you in St. Louis when I was in the market in about 2008 when only 55% of the listings were selling. And what that looks like when a market totally crashes, like in 2008. So this is why you can tell how bad the market is. You can go to sellers and buyers and say, no, you're not going to pay 15% off of list. This is what's going on in my market still. This is how valuable it is. So again, actives, pendings. This is usually what they tell you if you look at it from the MLS. And then when you get over here, this is the size of your buyer pool. If I looked at this 90 days ago in my market, and it was 300, and now it's 222, I could figure out how much my buyer pool in this price point shrunk. You can figure out the percentage of it. That's the ratio. Market velocity is how many days based on the ratio of the pendings and how many went in the last 30 days. I've got 40 days worth of inventory left at the rate the last 30 days that went under contract. Here's my expireds versus my closings. Remember I talked about it? So it's a relatively strong market. So you can see in this price point in Austin, there were 1,073 versus 136, right, that had expired. So for those agents that think that it's always a good idea to go chase expireds, or you've got a coach that is so misled that it's always good to go call expireds, this is an easy way to tell. If I'm in this price point in my market and only 136 over 6 months, good luck going after expireds. There's not enough of them, right? It depends. Here's how many solds per month, inventory, and then I go through and the rest of it's the stuff you're used to seeing. List to sale and some of the other numbers. And so I put them in there. That's easy summary data for you to get out of your MLS. So David, if you want to flip to the St. Louis market, let's talk about a debacle of a market. All right. So this was, I think, in about 2008. First thing will jump out at you, right? It's still Austin, David.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. There's one for St. Louis here, hopefully. One was a link and one was an attachment. Okay. All right. This should jump out at you. At the lowest price point, well below the median in St. Louis, 15% of the listings are in contract, right? Pendings in the last 30 days, with 431 active, only 39 went pending over a month. There are no buyers in this market, and there are tons of sellers. If you start tracking your numbers and you think about these relative ratios, you have agents running around your market going, the sky is falling, it's terrible, it's going sideways, the market is dramatically slowed down. Well, not unless you can look at this and be able to tell what's really going on. Here's where you'll really see it. Remember that number that I showed you? Over 1,000 solds, and it was like 136. So let's go to roughly the same price point in St. Louis. It's going to be down here somewhere. 391 and 305. right? There's only slightly more closings than expireds. Almost half of the listings are expiring. So only the most motivated, absolutely have to sell sellers are selling. That is what a really crappy market looks like. Let's go all the way to the bottom and look at the luxury market. Remember I told you I counseled agents to stop chasing luxury listings? So 800,000 plus, 4% of the listings are in contract. 4%. 364 actives, 15, and only 8 went pending in a 30-day period. That is for 5 million people, all of St. Louis. There were 8 listings that went contract for the whole entire market. Who wants to go prospect for $800,000 listings? In the brokerage I bought, I had 13 agents who focused on luxury properties. They're like, we can't figure out, nothing's selling, and we can't get sellers to agree to do it. Well, there's no buyers. Look at the relative ratio. Remember how it was in the other one in Austin? 1,365 expireds, 339 sold over 6 months. What do you think I worked on in this market? How did I make my money? He said expireds. Remember I told you the story, and for those of you that weren't here, showed up at the office at 7 a.m., started calling at 7:30. I usually had all my appointments for the day by about 8:15. I had between 30 and 75 new expireds in my target price ranges every day. And the people I didn't... Right. You have to know what's going on in your market, and it's not what the board's talking about, it's not what the newspaper's talking about, it's this type of data. You notice that, I'll get you in 1 second, Will. Have I talked about months of inventory? Have I talked about, and I think about this from the other day, none of that mattered. You want to know the relative strength between the listing side and the buy side, and what's really going on, so you can figure out how to actually figure out where to play in the market. Now, if you go to the markets we were talking about, where it was Miami-Dade or Sarasota, Manatee, and the price point, even like less than 90 days ago, was 375% of the listings were pending. You going to be able to work on expireds? I know agents, because I've talked to them, that are chasing expireds and canceled listings. The famous thing I used to say when I moved to Austin, I started coaching some agents, is there's nothing in the market that is not owned by somebody who's not motivated, or it's a disaster that should probably be condemned, that's expiring. What are you going to convert? Yeah. Do not chase, cancel, and expireds unless it's a market like this. I hope we never see a market like this again.
So in a situation like that, where there's obviously no market for expires, you know, and you would suggest that people focus on getting new sellers from like...
Sure. There's always a certain amount of turnover in the market. Yeah. What you see in the Austin spreadsheet, what you saw was like what you see in Florida. It's even way worse, right? Where you have 375% pending ratios, 30-day pending numbers that are still pretty big. What I would be paying attention to is start tracking it. Go back what I said, like 90 or 120 days. Roll that number forward. So in price points that you're going to be working, you know, is that number shrinking? There's less seasonality in Florida than there is in other parts of the country. St. Louis has heavy seasonality, right? When it gets snowy and icy, there's a lot less listings and a lot less contracts. You don't have that in Florida. So you want to know, for those numbers, if it was 300 pendings in 30 days, 90 days ago or 120 days ago, and you keep tracking it over time, is it getting bigger or smaller? Do I have more buyers coming into the market even with higher interest rates? Or did it get cut in half? Because as we talked about the other day, the demand side shuts off immediately. Jen calls or Cedric calls or Eric, congratulations, your payment went up by 45% from the 3 months ago when we talked to you. They're like, oh, well, we can't buy then. I'm not looking at $200,000 lower priced home. They shut off immediately. Whereas Kevin here's got his house on the market and hasn't sold yet. He's already committed, right? They got it ready, it's staged. So there's always overhang on the listing side. The buyers go away immediately. If they decide to renew their lease or they stop looking, and this is how you can tell by looking at that. And what gets really interesting is if you do it every week and you're a year later, you're going to be able to talk about this time of year, we should have 400 buyers in the last 30 days. There's only 300 now. The market has dramatically decreased the amount of buyers we have in our market. that is when people in the market will look at you as an authority, not just making stuff up like, oh, the market shifted, it slowed down, it's less frothy than it was. This is how you actually can do it and tell people what's really going on in the market. Yes, Will?
Is this an easy report to generate, or is this like a custom solution?
No, we just pulled it manually out of the MLS.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean.
You did it manually though, like you had to like get the raw data or.
Yeah,
'cause I know
yeah.
some
This is just a spreadsheet. Like if it's Stellar, we did this for Sarasota Manatee. David pulled it for the MLS one day. There's a lot of summary data in there. I mean, you got to figure out what you can pull and if you have to do minor modifications to a spreadsheet. But it's fairly easy to pull. And then I just had a VA do it every Monday. They come in and they would do it in about 10 minutes, and it was done. And then most of those things are formulas that will pull out the data and track it. So I think I exceeded my 5 minutes.